I next give the floor to Bony Morales, Deputy Minister for Housing and Urban Development of the plurinational state of Bolivia. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to convey my greetings to you, Madam President, and to the representatives of all countries and conference delegates. I would also like to extend the warm greetings of our President Evo Morales and of the people of Bolivia. Also, we would like to thank the government of President Correa and the people of Ecuador for extending such a warm welcome and organizing this august meeting. Bolivia, since adoption of its new constitution in 2009 as a plurinational state, has experienced significant economic and social progress, which has substantially improved the quality of life of Bolivian men and women, as well as the expectations for development of future generations. And in this regard, under the horizon of good living and in harmony and public health care, education and sports services, among others, creating the means provided, organized and supplied by the states for the population to have quick and adequate access to appropriate housing and habitat. According to the latest population and housing census in 2012, Bolivia has 10 million inhabitants, out of which 67% live in urban areas, and the figure climbs up to 28.8 compared to 2001, which reflects the accelerated urbanization process experienced by our cities, in particular in the three metropolitan areas in Bolivia: La Paz, Cochabamba and Santa Cruz. However, recently, we have seen the breathtaking growth of small and medium-sized cities, which has reached nearly 300% urban growth. The housing deficit in quantitative terms amounts to 750,000 houses, but in Bolivia there is essentially a qualitative deficit which amounts to 1,176,000 homes that do not have the building or service-related conditions that are needed, nor do they have the legal certainty in terms of tenure, nor do they have basic and public care services with defective conditions in terms of access to health care, services, transport, employment, and so on. However, during the past decade, significant progress has been made in the social generation of housing, going from an average of only 1,600 houses a year in 2001 to 2005 to average production of 12,500 houses a year between the administrations going from 2006 to 2015. In Bolivia, urban development falls exclusively within the jurisdiction of local governments, which have not yet generated the technical or management capacities to deal with accelerated urbanization processes, characterized by irregular occupation in most cities. Therefore, one of the key tasks identified has been the need to generate aggressive and sustainable urban planning and management processes on a municipal level basis, in accordance with the Constitution and bear in mind the characteristics of Bolivia's society, its identity, culture, economy, and means of appropriating the space available. Public investment in urban development has improved significantly in terms of infrastructure, the supply of basic services and public services generally, as well as projects for economic and human development through the municipal governments. Thanks to macroeconomic stability in a country in the last decade, which went from an average transfer of resources to municipal governments and universities of 2,800 million Bolivians in 2005 to an average transfer of 18.7 billion Bolivians in the period 2006 to 2005. So the increase has been approximately 600%. Although we have seen significant strides, there still remains a lot to be done within the context of a new urban agenda seeking to generate sustainable cities, as well as to generate the right conditions for the population to have access to appropriate housing, especially with a focus on the most vulnerable, such as women, single women, youth, and persons with disabilities, in addition to older persons. And in this context, on the occasion of this Habitat 3 conference, the United Nations Conference on Housing and Sustainable Urban Development, we have prepared a country report which is called Building Urban Communities to Live for Good Living in the 21st Century, which summarizes the progress made in terms of examining and discussing lessons learned, and also in terms of the challenges set for the future by institutions and civil organizations taking part in the different activities and exchange and socialization opportunities created. We have identified a conceptual basis that summarizes the Bolivian position vis-à-vis the international community, which is focused on promoting, strengthening, and generating urban communities as a strategic cross-cutting element relying on social cohesion for the construction of sustainable cities that are resilient and oriented to human life. Considering the substantial indigenous population base of our society, this notion relies on the actual diversity and richness of farming communities, as well as their means of occupation and appropriation of land as manifested in the urban space, which determines the special form of human settlements in Bolivia. Under this new urban paradigm, a strategic structure has been defined consisting of 3 lines of actions and 9 guidelines. Multi-local community-based life is the first pillar, which includes community-based production of urban-rural habitat with a focus on productive development for good living, equitable development, that is, government and community-based social participation and governance. The second pillar is integral territorial development with guidelines such as efficient use of land, sustainable occupation of land, compact cities, preserving protected areas, comprehensive housing and habitat interventions for human beings instead of isolated and diffuse intervention, capture and equitable distribution of urban land surpluses, social justice in the distribution of wealth from the cities. And the third pillar has to do with life systems in harmony with Mother Earth. The guidelines are environmental functions. Each intervention in each city must also consider mitigation and care actions for Mother Earth. Eco-efficiency technologically and in terms of energy for the infrastructure in cities. Resiliency and adaptation to climate change based on the urban communities as well, implementing integral risk management systems. At this conference, we are participating with high expectations in terms of the contents to be defined and which are about to materialize in the outcome document planned by the agenda. I would again like to convey my greetings to you all and thank you for your interest.